Welcome back to Dear Career. I'm Tiana, and this is the podcast where we take career topics and infuse them with real life experience to get you to where you want to be. This is one of the topics that I am so excited to get into. I love kind of New Year's planning and setting goals and resetting. I know that's not necessarily something everybody wants to do. Something I will say is that setting goals does not have to be at the beginning of the year, but to align with New Year's, I thought this would be great timing for us to get into a little bit more of what I do and just some things that I work with clients on. So I'm excited to get into today. Okay, so let's get started. I'm here planning for New Year's and what are going to be my goals. I don't know. It's something that I feel like really takes a lot of intention from anyone to decide on what their goals are going to be and then put some dedication into it. For me, I like to I like to be very focused when it comes to my New Year's planning and my goal setting. I've been doing this for several years now. I like to do a bit of a vision boarding. Now, vision boards they're not the activity that everyone likes to do. But for me, I love doing vision boards because it kind of taps into a little bit more creativity. I get to really think very thoroughly about my goals. I've done them at work where I've gotten groups of people or my team together and really kind of just focus on goals. And in a workplace, it's always good to encourage work goals, but it's also really important to infuse personal goals in there as well. When I do vision board sessions in my personal life, I usually have a group of friends and other women, and we come together and we really try to just dedicate time. And for me, it's very much about the activity and intention setting of thinking about what I want to achieve in the next year, thinking about where I want to go, what's happening in my current life, taking some moments to reflect. And please stay tuned at the end because I do have a little segment for us to go through at the end where I will have some prompted reflection questions for you to take on and hopefully participate in if you are interested. I think a couple years ago, I dedicated my vision board to really big goals and not really realizing or understanding that sometimes big goals can take a lot longer. One of the nice things that happens when you vision board is that you get to see your vision board. The idea is to put your vision board in a place where you can see it on a regular basis. It reminds you about what your goals are and things that you have intended for the year, but you're able to take a look at it when it's in a place that you can view regularly and you can start to notice, oh, I've accomplished X, Y, and Z on my vision board. So it's a very visual way to kind of check off goals that you've been able to achieve. So that's one of the pieces that I really find rewarding from it. I've had different experiences for myself with vision boards. And if you guys are interested in a vision board session, maybe there's an episode way I can do a dialogued vision board. Let me know. Let me know in the comments if New Year's vision boarding is something that you're interested in because I find it to be very helpful. Yeah, I did set some big goals that I couldn't quite achieve in a year. Like I didn't realize it was going to take me much longer to achieve certain goals. And that's okay. But I did have to adjust this year to recognize that maybe my goals were instead of year planning, they could take potentially 2 to 3 years. Some of the goals needed to be broken down a bit further. I really do like to visually look at real life concepts and I've done I've done a lot of research in finding out more information for myself on how I can make my vision boards more effective. So one of the things I like to do is I like to be very specific in my vision boards. If I have actual pictures of real things, like maybe certain people or certain places I want to go, or maybe specific things that I want to achieve. If there's a picture, those are the things that I actually include on my vision board versus, and I used to do this. I used to go and get a bunch of magazines and then cut out pictures and put them on my vision board. But sometimes with that, it's not as specific as I would want it to be. They're a little bit more generic. And I think some of that stuff is actually fine. I love Pinterest and you can always get a lot of pictures from Pinterest. Some of the stuff is fine if it's, um, maybe an idea or concept, but not necessarily something specific. For example, a kitchen table. I right now am working on trying to get a bigger kitchen table, partly because the baby has been starting to eat and he has his high chair, and the table we currently have is a bit higher. And so to get him at level with us so that we can feed him properly, I wanted to make sure I was getting a kitchen table that seated more people, because the table we have currently only fits four. And when we have friends or family over, it's really a bit tight. And so I wanted to get more space in the table, but also bring the table lower. In this process, if you don't have any ideas of what it is exactly that you're looking for, maybe you just want to try to use images of kitchen tables that are, maybe you want tables that are, you want a 6-person table versus a 4-person table, whatever it is, you can use images of whatever idea that you're looking at. When you're being more specific, it's a lot easier to manifest what you're looking for. So same thing with goal setting. When you're a bit more specific and can break things down, you're much more likely to achieve those goals. And so that's just a little example. I didn't necessarily have that on my vision board for this year, to be honest. At the beginning of the year, the baby wasn't even here, so I wasn't even thinking about that at all. But there have been things that I've been more specific about when it comes to maybe something I'm trying to purchase, maybe something or some place I'm trying to go. I've done that kind of stuff. But anyway, so I typically will get together with a group of girlfriends and we work on our vision boards together. And it takes a few hours for us. I assign the girls to get their images together so that way we can have our vision boards session. I actually really love this idea. And we've talked about with our kids in the future to also do this kind of activity with them, because not only is it creative and it creates a creative outlet, but it also helps to visualize goals. And kids are really good with imagery. And while they may not have goals necessarily, this will help them to kind of put a little bit of strategy to goal setting at a young age if they're interested. But anyway, so I will get with friends. We go through really kind of putting our vision board together. I have a bunch of little things that I like to tie into it. Sometimes I'll get different like stickers or colorful tape. I do like to use color in my vision board, specifically tied to certain things. Like, actually, I'm wearing green right now. I like to use greens because greens and yellows are good representations of money. So those are really good for money, driving money as goals, but also through manifestations. Those are things that I like to do. Sometimes there's other colors that I like to incorporate as well, just depending on, I think I've used like reds and pinks before when it was coming to trying to manifest relationships, things like that. So it just depends. I will get the group together and we spend time really working through the visions that we have and trying to conceptualize and lay down, set those goals up and really get those things figured out. And then at the end of our session, we like to kind of speak truth or maybe a voice or bring our goals and ideas to life by just sharing with each other what the goals are. So, and sometimes that's very personal. So I always make sure the group feels comfortable with what they're sharing, but they don't need to share in full detail. I do like the idea of putting voice to what your goals are so that way you can really speak them alive, bring them to life. They do become more real when you speak them out loud. So, that is kind of my activity for the new year. I usually do that right at the end of the year or beginning of the new year. I will say that sometimes I might not be super clear. There's been years where I've been very clear. I know exactly what I want. I know exactly where I'm trying to go. And then there's other years where I'm not quite sure and I'm not quite clear. And other times where I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I know a few things, but then there might be something that doesn't really become apparent right away, or it starts to build once I start spending time thinking about it. And that could be you. You could be in any of these kinds of phases when you're setting your goals at the beginning of the year. Another thing is, while I typically do my vision board sessions at the end of the year, beginning of the new year, there are a few different times a year where goal setting and resetting can be really effective. So when I was volunteering at the library and working with the public. I did do some New Year's goal setting sessions, but I also try to do it at a few different times during the year because it's never too late and never an inappropriate time to start a new goal. You can do that at any time you want, but there are some times that kind of make more sense. One of the times a year that is a really great time of year to set new goals is during the spring. Setting goals during a springtime is a really, I think, a metaphorical way in life to mirror nature. So when in the springtime is when the rain comes and the earth is really starting to replenish. So the seeds are typically starting to be planted, and then springtime is when nature starts to bloom. It's a really nice way that life is kind of going through a cycle where you can mirror that in an actual action setting sense. And so that's one of the great ways. I would also say that there are different cycles, and I'll talk about this in another episode as well, but different times a year in financial business status are different times where budgets become more available. And so they could represent new jobs. The end of the year and the beginning of the year are one of those times, but also June time into July. There are some budget cycles that end in June and new budgets become available in July. And so that's another time of year where goal setting can be a good time to reset, another good time to set goals. So again, like I said, there's more than one time of year to be able to reset goals. I am just looking at this specific time because I personally like using the calendar. And then I actually like to do them a couple times and re-look at them again, especially because if I'm setting goals at the end of the year and then really putting them into a vision board at the beginning of the year and laying them out, Lunar New Year is a good time to just do a quick assessment for me. So I will use some of these markers as check-ins for myself as well. And I've done these check-ins as more of a group activity when it comes to some volunteer work I've done. Okay. So I wanted to also bring about when you're setting goals, some key areas to assess. Some of the key areas that I work with clients on, and I will encourage clients to, at the beginning of the year, take a look at the wheel of life and encourage if this is a time to reset goals, if we're working together, if that's something that they want to do. The wheel of life is a great way. And I will work with clients throughout their cycle, and we will visit or potentially revisit the wheel of life depending on where they're at with our work together. And so there are some key categories in the wheel of life that kind of help us break out our life into categories so that way we can really define what's important, where do we want to spend our focus, and start to prioritize things. So the key categories in the wheel of life are social relationships, business or career, finances, health, family, romance, personal growth, and fun and recreation. Now, this is a specific language I'm using for um, a wheel of life I use, but there are other categories that maybe the naming conventions are a little different or slightly kind of in a different direction, but typically this is kind of a core set of categories. One of the important things about looking at these categories and kind of breaking things down and starting to find balance within the categories is so that way you really can work through achieving goals that you have. When you're spread so thin and you're looking at all of these categories and all these areas in your life and you're doing them all at the same time, it is going to be much harder to achieve any goals or accomplish things that you want to accomplish. And so when I'm working with clients, we typically start to, in an activity with the wheel of life, we work through categorizing these topics and prioritizing what makes the most sense. I will say that a lot of my clients, especially the ones that I work with, are heavier goals are going to be on the business career side and a lot of times finances. But something that's really important to note is that all these categories are very interconnected. And so they all kind of speak to each other, they all work with each other, and you can't really have one without the other because then there becomes an imbalance in life, but they play really important pieces in your everyday life where they fit in together. And typically what I'll see happen when I'm working with clients and typically prioritizing a business career or finances. And sometimes it's personal growth, but these categories are where they're really most focused on because they're not where they want to be in these particular areas. A lot of times, business and career or career goals will tie into finances because while a client may really like what they're doing, they don't feel like they're getting paid well enough. And so we really try to work on focusing on the finances piece of their life and where do we go with that. But sometimes what I'll see with the clients is where the balance starts to come in is that maybe they're doing really well health wise. They have a great family, they're in a really great relationship, but they really are not feeling confident about their career. They feel like their career is not where they want it to be. And then sometimes it's vice versa. Maybe their career is going well, but they start to realize that they're really lacking in a relationship. And they're really looking to find love. And so we work through figuring out what's most important at that time. Where do we want to focus on in order to set some goals and then kind of take it from there? You can always revisit this. You can always reassess and see if I put myself at a 10 in career and a 5 in romance, and I want to check back in 6 months just to see where I am. Yeah, that's a great idea. And then at that time, maybe I'm at more of an 8 in career, and now I'm at a 6 in romance. That's okay. That means that the marker has moved a little bit. It's starting to balance out a little bit. Is the goal to have 10s in every single category? Probably not. Because if you are at that place, then what are you going to be working on next? So really, while it's nice to have 10s in certain areas when you're ranking these categories. 10, I wouldn't say is the ultimate goal. There's always more to achieve and there's always work to be done with yourself. And that's just kind of how life is. Life is ever evolving and we're always growing and changing. There's always new things that are coming up in our lives and new challenges that we have to face. So that's that. I love working with clients on the wheel of life because it's so exciting to see a client start out in one area and then after a certain amount of sessions or towards the end of our work, we can go back and we can look at the wheel life and we can see where are they ranking now and kind of compare. And it's so rewarding as a coach to see my clients grow and go in the direction they want to be in. A lot of times I'll see clients accept new positions or get promoted or make more money. And those things are so, so exciting to hear. And I love those stories and I love to see my clients grow. That's why I like using the wheel of life in my work. Okay, now that we've kind of talked about what I do and what I do with my clients, I did want to kind of close things out a little bit in today's session to work through a little bit of a reflection. Now, I don't do this in all of my episodes, but I really found I love working with clients and working through some curious questions. And it really provides ability for clients to go inward and do some reflective work. And I like to encourage that. And I love to do reflective work in my own life. And so I would like to invite you to take a moment to reflect as I go through some reflective questions. So I'm going to ask some questions. If you want to pause the episode and work through responses, now's the time. You don't have to. The nice thing is that you can always come back to this episode and listen to these reflective questions and answer them in your own time whenever you're ready. But you can also just think about them if you don't feel like you want to write them out or journal them, and that's okay. If you want to, you can, but you don't have to. So let's get into some reflective questions as you're closing out 2025, getting into 2026. My first question I have for you is, what did not serve you in 2025? What did not serve you in 2025? And what I mean by that is really what was not working for you? What do you think really didn't help you or wasn't really getting you closer to where you wanted to be? Okay, my next question is, what changes do you want to make for 2026? What changes do you want to make for 2026? Okay, and then my last question is going to be, where do you want to dedicate your focus over the next 90 days? Again, where do you want to dedicate your focus over the next 90 days? And when you're going through these questions, you do not have to think about this at the same time that I'm thinking about it, as the end of the year, beginning of the new year. If you're in the springtime listening to this, feel free to kind of apply some of these questions in your own timing. You can always go back and think about the previous year at any point in the year, in the new year. So it's okay to do that, and it's okay to take the time to do that. Well, that's it. That's all I had for you today. I'm so grateful you were able to join me in this goal setting New Year's session. I hope you found something interesting from our topic today. And please let me know in the comments if you have any goals that you're trying to set for 2026. Let me know, what was in this episode that I shared that helped you. Is there anything that you are excited to take on for 2026? Feel free to share your reflections. But until next time, I love you. Thank you so much for spending the time with me in this episode, and I look forward to the next session.